Antony Loewenstein is a journalist and author of The Palestine Laboratory. He joins me now from Sydney, Australia. Good to see Antony. The ICJ call for Israel to immediately halt its Rafah offensive. It really is just the latest sign of international condemnation of how Israel has prosecuted the war. The Guardian newspaper, in fact, had a headline the other day saying, quote, "Isolated abroad, torn apart at home." So more countries are recognising a Palestinian state. How much has the war damaged Israel's international standing?
Hugely, in a short answer. And even before October 7, in fact, there was evidence, particularly with young Americans and young people in many Western countries especially, that their view of Israel, particularly its occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, which has been going on for decades, was massively damaging its image. But since October 7 and the last 7+ months of just brutal bombardment and mass killing, that has plummeted. And essentially, we're seeing all these various student encampments around the world, some universities being much more receptive. For example, Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, has been open to divesting from Israeli support, Israeli companies that are operating in the occupied West Bank. That kind of thing will continue to happen. Doesn't mean there is not support for Israel. The US, the UK, frankly, much of Europe still does support Israel. But there's definitely been a sea change in the last 7 months.
You've written and said a lot about this. I mean, how badly did Israel miscalculate international reaction to how it's conducted the war in terms of civilian deaths and damage caused? And do you think that damage could be long-lasting?
Miscalculated in a way, although not surprising from its perspective, because essentially for decades there's been complete impunity. I mean, Israel has never seriously faced any real backlash. There's never been real sanctions, never been any accountability at the ICC or anywhere else for that matter. So Israel, I think, thought that we could kill huge amounts of Palestinians in Gaza and pretty much get away with it. And it's important to note that for many countries, they do accept that. In fact, they support it very strongly by sending arms and other things. But certainly globally, I think they have been, when I say they, many in Israel, maybe not the government, but many in Israel have been shocked to some extent by how unwilling many people are to accept the Israeli claims and crimes in Gaza, let alone what's happening in the West Bank now, which is massive increase in violence by radical state-backed settlers. So Israel faces not just a potential image problem, but also an economic problem in years to come with potential sanctions and an arms embargo, which may well happen from some states.
You mentioned the government. I mean, could the makeup of Israel's current government, the far-right influence and so on, and the comments of even the Prime Minister of Israel that it will stand alone if it has to and so on, given all of that, does it appear Israel's leader actually care what the international community thinks at this point?
Well, he cares about the US. I mean, America obviously has been, under Joe Biden, 110% supportive. I mean, we hear about Joe Biden being concerned and certain red lines. It's all been nonsense. What matters is the arms keep flowing. And we've seen the US response in the last week or so to the ICC case, 110% backing of Israel. And it's also worth saying here that all the likely alternatives to Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, Yair Lapid, who have been in government before or even in the war cabinet in terms of Gantz, have come out backing the government in Israel in terms of its war aims in Gaza. So the idea that Netanyahu having a far-right government is making it less likely to change, if Netanyahu falls, the policies are going to remain remarkably similar. And that, I think, is the problem that many Israel supporters have, is that the image problem is not simply better PR, it's actually changing the policy, end the occupation, stop the war. But they don't seem to be listening to that yet.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this too. Israelis can, and Israelis tell me this too, they can access whatever media they want, but in terms of the domestic coverage, or most of it, do they even see many of the images of suffering and damage that the rest of the world sees in their mainstream media, or are they in a way shielded from it by most domestic media? Not all, but most. And how does that play into public opinion in Israel?
I would call willful blindness. You're right. I mean, what's interesting in Israel is it's not a dictatorship in Israel itself. In other words, it's not a situation like in other states where certain information is literally blocked by the state. The information is there. the images of mass destruction in Gaza. The vast bulk of the Israeli media has kind of become quite similar, I would argue, to the US media after 9/11, kind of in this furious patriotic fervor, to the point where Israeli soldiers, even in the last few days, something has gone viral of an Israeli soldier in Gaza posting online images of literally burning books, Palestinian books. So I think a lot of Israelis might be shocked by the international response, but if they choose not to see what's going on in Gaza, that's their choice, and they're going to be paying a pretty high price for it in years to come.
We're almost out of time, but I wanted to squeeze this in real quick. You've literally written a book about this next question, the Palestine Laboratory. How has Israel's international arms industry benefited from this war globally? Real quick.
Well, so far, very well. I mean, just a few days ago, one AI company raised tens of millions of dollars for something that they'd been testing actually in Gaza since October 7. At various global arms fairs, Israel is selling various tools and technologies that they've been promoting and using in Gaza, so-called battle tested. So this really is what Israel will rely on moving forward, because economically they're in a bit of trouble. And the arms industry, I fear, will be something that many states are going to want to copy of what Israel's doing in Gaza since October 7.